you definitely want to have is some kind of workstation setup. Now you can see my station here is pretty full of stuff that I'm cutting from the sprues. You don't need an actual like station like, you know, this little setup here. This is my husband's first attempt at making a little paint station for me, and then here's his second attempt. Very nice. I use this as my painting station. Of course, the other one is more for cutting and hacking and all that goodness. I already have all of the terrain cut and cleaned, but I'm still working on some of these Dreadfleet ships. Get them removed from the sprue and cleaned. I'm really liking how easy it's going. It's not like doing the Space Wolf Terminators at all. It's much more difficult to, well, not difficult, but more time-consuming filing the mold lines from those Terminators than it is filing anything on these ships. Here's just a close-up of some of the stuff I've already gotten off the sprues and cleaned. And some of the Space Wolf Terminators I'm working on for the Space Hulk set. I just want to get them all assembled and primed before it gets too cold to do so. Just really loving the detail on these ships. But I still have a little bit more to do. And again, you don't need a fancy schmancy setup like this. You can just use a piece of wood to cut on, or a cutting mat, or just like a folding table, which is what these are on. But you can certainly dedicate the table itself to your cutting and painting needs. This little marker comes with a rather chunky plastic stand. I'm going to go ahead and replace that with one of my leftover Tyranid gargoyle clear stands. All I had to do was cut off the base. Now this is bigger than this hole. It's not going to fit in the hole, but my glue will be good enough to make that work. And I'm going to figure out how exactly to attach these to the top of the clear plastic, because the hole is really tiny. But it'll work. For now, I'm going to go ahead and use the stand just for doing the priming. And then once I actually paint it, I'll switch over to the clear. You're not going to believe this. I was trying to assemble the scabrous, and it drew blood. Just trying to get the flag on, and unbelievably, my hand slipped and right onto those spines on the back. Ugh, unbelievable. One thing you should probably do is have your assembly station or painting station, what have you, not be in a living room where you have to deal with a lot of family or the occasional little bilge rat that wanders in, or even the little sea dog. But it would be a good idea to provide yourself with a distraction for your eyes. So, for example, although I am not watching kid shows, it would be good to have a TV going while painting or assembling, just to give your eyes something else to adjust to. Keeping too much of a focus on these minute little pieces and objects for too long can give you some pretty bad eye strain or headaches. So just so you can look up every now and then and give your eyes just a little bit of a rest that way. It's a good thing. Right, me hearty? I know, Muggsy. He don't care. Alright, so whether you're using liquid glue or gel glue. Just remember, a little dab will do you. You work your glue along the sides of your ship. Probably a little easier to control with the gel. Only a little bit. You don't want too much, because when you mate the two halves together, or three halves, what have you, you don't want the glue seeping out. I had such a difficult time getting the Bloody Reaver together. But most of these ships just snap right in. Just double checking my joiners here. Come on. You can do it. Oh, these ships have been killing me. I'm working now on the Helden hammer. Just finished this monstrosity. I like the ship, but oh, it's brutal put together. I don't know if you guys are having as hard a time as I am fitting everything, but basically I just want to get them ready for priming, and I figure it would be good to go ahead and prime the masts along with the ship, and it worked fine, except with the Bloody Reaver. I personally think I can get my brush into all these little places, so I decided to just go ahead and build it and prime it this way. But if you're unsure if you can get your brush into these little areas, especially up here inside the castle, then feel free to just go ahead and prime the pieces separately for painting separately and assembling later. These little masts have like a little ball at the end, which help fit into the ship better. So, you kind of have to have those in here when you assemble. Even though I dry fitted a lot of these pieces, I've run into problems when it actually came to gluing them. I don't know if anyone else is experiencing that. Hopefully not. Yep. Sometimes it's easier to go ahead and glue one side of a piece of the ship before the other. Helps a little bit with mating the edges. Come on. Work with me. There we go. That way you can put your fingers in this area and not get glue on them. And you would think that would be obvious, except I've been doing that a lot. So hopefully I'll give you a little reminder to save yourself some of the trouble. Want to give it a nice secure hold. Make sure everything is flush and butted against each other. Sometimes you can flip the ship over, make sure your lineups are good to go. Alright, so now everything is snapped together. I've only had trouble with these joining connections on one ship, and that was the elf ship. Had a very, very hard time trying to get everything to connect. I even cut off the joiners in the end. It took me like 4 times to try and get this together, and I finally kind of just said, I'm done. You get so frustrated after a while. I had this thing come apart on me so many times, and this wasn't sitting flush, and that wasn't connecting right, and it was just a nightmare. So maybe you'll have better luck with this particular ship than I did, but you can see it's still, you can see the light coming through there, so you know it's not 100% flush. But I'm leaving it alone. So, awesome Helden Hammer ship. And I've been debating what to do with the Kraken. It would actually probably be best to primer separately and paint separately, just like the Bloody Reaver. But I'm going to go ahead and assemble mine. I think I can get all of these tentacles with my brush okay. So if you feel comfortable doing that, feel free to go ahead and glue and assemble. But if not, you know, it's no big deal painting separately. We're going to have to do that anyway for the Shade Wraith, the dwarf ship, and of course the ship that drew first blood in this, the Scabrous. Probably my personal favorite ship in terms of looks, but really they all have a great look. But now me and the Scabrous are joined forever with the sharing of blood. You know, another ship I'm disappointed with how it came together is this one. Look at that gap. I had to fight this ship a while too to get it together. I just don't know. I'm probably going to have to fill that gap. If you're having some gap issues, like, you know, really bad ones like this, I mean, that right in there, that's a bad gap. Painted, it doesn't show up as much, but I mean, you know it's there. And there's a way that you can fill that gap, which I'll probably talk about a little bit later. So what can you do to fill a gap like this? Well, you can go to the hardware store and get some plumber's putty, or you can go to your arts and crafts store and get some epoxy sculpt. Both will work. However, the epoxy sculpt I find is a little bit sticky. You kind of have to fiddle with the mixing of it. And the plumber's putty, it stinks really bad. Ugh, it's also a little bit on the sticky side, but just the smell alone just sucks. What a lot of the miniature assemblers and painters use is something called green stuff. Now, you don't need anywhere near this amount of green stuff. We're going to be dealing with like super minute quantity here just to fill that gap. When you've worked with miniatures as much as I have, you buy in bulk. Anyway, you can get this at GW or over the internet, and it's simply called green stuff, and it's blue and yellow, and you mix them together. And you know, most of the other putties you're going to end up mixing together, regardless of whether it's plumber's putty or epoxy sculpt or whatever. But I find that green stuff is just easier to work with than the other types. It doesn't smell at all, which is a huge plus. I'm kind of sensitive to certain smells. I get headaches real easily for some reason. And it just works great. I love having it on hand. So for a simple gap fill of this nature, you're only going to mix together just a tiny amount. This is even probably too much. So you mix that all together. A good way to mix is just spiral it a bunch of times. Squish together, pinch, pull, spiral, squish, pinch, pull. You get the idea. Make it turn green, and then you'll be set to work with it. So you want to put a small little bit of green stuff across your gap, and then just lay it down and smooth it out as best as you can. So you see, after smoothing out, it looks pretty good. Once that's painted, it'll be far less noticeable. And got a whole bunch of green stuff left over, which of course can't be saved because it gets hard. But in case you had some other gaps to fill, you can go ahead and do that. I think I might fill this upper gap here too. So wait about a day, at least let the green stuff sit overnight before priming, and you're good to go. Now we've finished assembling the ships that we're going to prime. And then we have the ones we will prime, but in separate parts. So we only have 3 ships: the Shade Wraith, the Scabrous, and Grimnar's Thunder, which will be painted before assembly.
Look at me, little scallywag. Uh-oh, he has seen me. Arr! You being an engineer today. I do need a new helmsman. Oh.